Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the prospects of a high season in Thailand, or lack thereof. I don't mean to laugh, but it's a bit like gallows humor here because it looks to me like probably high season is going to be dead on arrival. And the reason for that is, or maybe I should say what we traditionally think of as high season is probably just not going to be on the cards for 2021 going into 2022. And the reason for this is quoting from a recent article in the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, "Reopening Delayed for Nightclubs, Bars." Quoting directly, CCSA spokesman Tawisip Wisanuyotin said the CCSA meeting chaired by Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha decided to defer by another month a plan to allow pubs, bars, and karaoke's to reopen on December 1. The new tentative reopening date, keep that in mind, the new tentative reopening date was set for January 16th and only for some areas, depending on the COVID situation again, and only for some areas. So, this is not like a blanket thing. I was originally going to kind of make a ranting video on this topic, and I'm not going to. And it's not because I'm not upset, and it's not because I think that a lot of this, at least on a certain level, and I really have certain questions, and as you've seen in other videos, I've been pretty critical of the CCSA and a lot of the things that we've done, especially from the standpoint of, data. Where's the data that shows that this is doing anything? We have the data economically. We know it's destroying economically. It's a real question as to just how crippled the entertainment sector will be coming off of this. But, I have my critiques of a lot of this stuff. That is not the reason why I'm not going to make a ranting video here. The reason I really thought about this, and it ultimately came down for me in how I reacted to this, after my initial reaction, which was kind of not great, and then I sort of thought about it a little bit more. It comes down to good faith at the end of the day. Do you believe that folks are acting in good faith with respect to these policies? And for this last time, I'm going to say I believe them. I get it, and here's why. I was kind of trying to put myself in their shoes, and I don't know if this is how they're thinking, but I was trying to put myself in their shoes. It's kind of how you have to reason sometimes, especially when you're dealing with law and with laws that are especially susceptible to policy changes. Immigration's one of them. I got to thinking about it, and I said, why would they do this? I mean, they know the downside. There's clearly, they know it. Meanwhile, look, the numbers, we're not seeing millions of people coming into Thailand. Tens of thousands are starting, it's looking like those numbers are going to be viable November into December. And look, this will probably have a substantial negative impact on overall numbers sort of moving outward. Because as I've discussed in other videos, people look at what's going on now to plan for 3 months from now. But 3 months from now, we're already getting into what we would call low season again anyway. So I understand the argument that there might not be a huge upside potential to just getting things reopened. At the same time, I understand the argument that, if we're going to get reopened, entertainment venues and whatnot, and look, for whatever reason, entertainment got utterly vilified going back in April as, the cause of a cluster that spread everywhere and blah, 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 blah. Well, you could have pointed to a million different clusters that had spread. I don't know why entertainment was sort of pointed out. There were political, ramifications because there were certain folks that were, went to various venues that had political connections or affiliations, and it became sort of a political thing. Anytime anything becomes political, it, reason oftentimes gets thrown out the window, and then it just becomes sort of a kind of a political theater. Not getting into all that, but I think the entertainment sector got a really bad rap as a result of that. I actually think people at a policy level understand this here. And the reason I'm on this time, it's that whole tentative. I think I'll have a very different attitude come January 16th if we're still seeing more waiting and yeah, well, tentatively we're maybe going to do this down the road. But for now, if the thinking is, and this is what you're just getting into the heads, trying to think as a policymaker here would, there's not a huge upside benefit, on an economic standpoint. We're already down. If entertainment venues open, is it really going to result in a huge spike of tourists or something? Unlikely. Okay. Meanwhile, if the thinking is, look, if we're going to open, we want to open and just be done with this and put this behind us, maybe that's not a bad thing, or maybe that's not a bad way of thinking. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that logic, especially based on the data associated with this whole thing. It's not really within the scope of this video. And frankly, it's, I'm a layman when it comes to that kind of thing, so I'm not going to get into that. But if that's the way the thinking is right now, that, look, if we're going to do it, let's do it right, and let's just reopen and be done, put this behind us, then okay, I see the argument. I may not necessarily totally agree with it, but I understand it. And for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of cool my heels on, being upset about all of this for now, and just kind of, as usual, hope for the best, plan for the worst. But I'm really hoping that policymakers understand we do need to get reopened. This entertainment sector and these sectors of food and beverage that are massively, massively negatively impacted by this, we need to put this behind us. But if basically what we're saying is sort of this is the last hill we got to overcome and then we're moving on, I can get with that if that's really the case.